Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first espresso break of the year. Today, we'll be joined by Rocky Martinez and Pallavi Dongre from the SmartStream RDU, who will be discussing how firms burdened by legacy architecture or cost efficiencies can use API services to offer a much-needed helping hand. I'll now hand over to the team who will be able to explain more.
Hello, everyone. Good day. Thank you for coming. My name is Rocky Martinez. I am the CTO of the Reference Data Utility, and I'm here today with my good friend and colleague, Pallavi Dongre. Pallavi is going to introduce herself and jump right into some of the issues that we want to resolve using our API service. Pallavi, take it away.
Hey, Rocky. Hi guys, I'm Pallavi Dongre. I handle the data operations and the client engagement team at SmartStream RDU, which is the reference data utility. Just by virtue of the role that we play, right? We are bang in the middle of change that is emanating from upstream, which are the exchanges, and from downstream too, right? I mean, clients are constantly looking for newer attributes in a particular format, or even they want data to be disseminated in a faster and different way, right? I guess that's where API comes to the rescue. But the point I'm trying to belabor is that reference data, the biggest myth in the reference data world is that reference data is static. Rocky knows how often we go running to him for all the changes that the exchanges make. Like for example, cryptocurrency has been around for a while, but the exchanges have jumped onto the bandwagon, right? And CMEG has introduced cryptocurrency derivatives. Suddenly, you have to now grapple with how to model these, right? Are cryptocurrency derivatives FX derivatives, or are they commodity derivatives? Do you have to now figure out who are all the providers of cryptocurrencies, right? Because you want to be able to model it, right? What are futures? Again, a new phenomena, because there is a drought in California and the almond farmers want to hedge their risks against water shortages, right? So now the water futures itself are priced out of a water index, which is based out of California. And then, but the underlying commodity really is water that you're hedging against, right? So you're now talking about modeling it in a manner such that you have multiple levels of underlying, right? So there is the underlying, which is the water index, and then the ultimate underlying, which is water itself, right? So many such examples where which prove that really exchanges are more than just a marketplace. They're trying to create a place where they are moving along with the latest trend, and hence globally, if you're just following all instrument reference data globally, there are many such flavors, right? Options and futures, options on strategies, the legs, how they all intermingle with each other. And just to be on top of all of these changes, I mean, the traders, we all know that the users of these data want this data as of yesterday, right? So the biggest challenge really, Rocky, would be to kind of be quick and nimble with handling all these changes and modeling it right. There's no point
which is why the APIs are so important, because as we know in big organizations, it takes a lot between internal auditors and regulations and all the different types of not just regulations, but legislation and how data needs to be tracked and changed. By using the API, you can take in our normalized data. So not only does the RDU bring in data, it normalizes it so that a put is always a put, no matter who brings it in. I mean, how many times have we got stuck between P's and lowercase p's and PUT and PUTE and whatever the case may be? When you get the data through our APIs, it's always a P, regardless of what the exchange or the regulator has put in their feeds. So now, as the consumer, your data is clean, it's stacked, and it's normalized, so you can use it right away. and you don't need to hire hundreds of people to make sure it's in the right format, which is why you want to use the APIs.
We started on that, right, Rocky? I mean, the whole gamut of people, when someone builds a reference data system, they think that they've set up all the right rules. But like I alluded to the fact that it changes, right? The data moves along with the time. So the system that you built as of like 5 months ago is already archaic today, right? And I've worked at enough banks to know that there comes a time when you just start to ignore the exceptions, right?
Right.
It's never a good idea to do that. But the data rules, the checks and balances, the data quality measures that you put in tend to run out, right? And or they throw up so many exceptions, and some of them are valid. You have dailies on Eurex with a day code of 32. Like there is no month which has
it's 19 hours,
which has more than 31 days, right? But it is a valid day code, right? Because it takes into consideration the business days, etc. Right? So, like I said, there are many examples where banks and investment firms end up trying to play the catch-up game, right? So it makes a hell lot of sense now to kind of use the API so that you get clean and good quality data.
And let's so we just had Brexit, right? And we know that one of the second half of our APIs is around regulations. I mean, we could only guess at the amount of effort it was. Now you have to take ESMA data and FCA data separately, and we did all that work for a lot of people. So and there's no. So one of the things and the technology side is you want to bring value and revenue. Just processing FCA data and using all those resources, there's not much value there. So it makes sense to use an outside service like ours to provide that data to you so that you can concentrate on increasing your customers, your revenue, and your efficiencies.
And it's not easy data, right, Rocky? I mean, if you read the ESMA or even now the FCA regulations, they're just reams and reams of paper where you're trying to even figure out what attributes, like are we good enough if we report 2, or do we have to report a model 15? I know we all kind of, RDU was able to get everybody on a round table so as to discuss it, right? So we came up with best practices. The RDU, in fact, even modeled their own sub-asset classes so that the reporting goes out right. So you're always working in sync with the regulators in many ways as a third party, and you come up with thought leadership, so to say, to model it right, so that at the end of the day you don't have to employ 10 heads to be able to just figure out one attribute. If that problem is solved, I think most of the banks would be happy to just report, right? Get in the data for what you need and send out a report, because regulators, like it or not, nobody wants to be on the wrong end of regulators, right? We're talking large amounts of fines, and we're talking about audits. All of that is not fun.
Right. So piggyback, keep going on that. We know from our experience, and you've had some more intimate experience with our customers about how they've been using our APIs and how a large European bank, Northern European bank, actually did a release, went into production, and you have an interesting story about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even kidding about this, right? Typically, when clients go live, it's a hell lot of hand-holding, right? Because we used to talk about large sets of data. How do full files work? How do deltas work? What is really a delta? How many attributes am I going to get? What do I interpret out of each flag? How do I know some attribute has changed? How do I process the updates in the right fashion? How do I process inactivations, right? A hell lot of questions. We literally had to write down FAQs and a bunch of questionnaires to get it right. You want to help them set it up right. I think this is when Brexit happened, right, Rocky? And one of these banks went live with their data, and we had zero questions. And I remember discussing internally on, maybe they didn't go live. Maybe we should reach out and find out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. And all they said was we didn't need to, right? I mean, they said the API was out there. We knew what parameters to pass on. We knew what data we were getting. We really didn't have any questions for you, and that's right. That was such a change from how we used to onboard previous clients, right? Nobody wants a whole gamut of data. Truth be told, you may be the largest bank, the biggest hedge fund, handling the largest amount of AUM, but nobody wants the whole universe of data. You're talking about equities and single stock futures on them, and then you're talking of options on them, and you're talking about strategies, how much index compositions. But everybody really works with an SOI, securities of interest. So why work with the universe of data set? Leave that to us, where we really live and breathe this, right? We actually feel excited when we see a new flavor of derivative getting introduced, or a new basket or custom basket that comes in. We're all discussing and we're all figuring out how it needs to be modeled. But it's not so much fun when you have deadlines to meet from a client's point of view, right? So all they want to do is send out an ISIN, send out an identifier to us, pick up the data that they need and send it out, right? So straight through processing is simple when it's straight through, right?
And that brings up another interesting point of view, is that by using the APIs, you don't need to use lots of resources to store data that you may or may not need. So by using our APIs, you leave a lot of the bulk of the data in somebody else's backyard, so to speak, and you only pull out the bats and balls that you want when you want to play that game. So that also helps in reducing the cost and the overall expense of running a particular business. As I always said, when banks are making money, they really don't care. But when things start getting a little iffy, they start trying to find places. And one of the places is all the amount of reference data that they store that they may or may not need. So using the APIs, they can get the data for whatever, either regulatory or trading, fairly real time or near real time using the APIs. So that's another big savings to the banks, is the ability to not have to house all that information.
Like it or not, Rocky, I mean, we've all seen data stores being modeled, and then they get replicated downstream, right? I mean,
Right.
even if you have a whole horizontal reference data system, like it almost feels like the API has negated the need to have this whole horizontal reference data layer, right? Because each trading desk in many ways likes to deal with their own data, and they have these nicks and knacks that they want to override the data with. They want it in a particular format, and they end up replicating the data. So you're not only talking about one level of storage, you're talking about all of these multiplied by that
Right.
time. So it's big cost saving.
And what does that cause? That causes breaks, because along the line, your settlement system has a different piece of information than your trading, and then suddenly you have a break because you're not using the same data. So by using the APIs, everybody is forced to use, not forced, but they get the same data, and there's no reason for a replication to be broken somewhere in the organization. One final thing I'd like to talk about, Pallavi, is in your experience when you were at the banks. We keep talking about the efficiencies, but let's talk about what happens when banks really try to do this on their own, and the amount of effort and the amount of expense that happens, and the amount of delays, because we know that these things always get delayed. So when you were in the banks, how did that process go, and how would this fix that?
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to a couple of points where the exceptions tend to kind of just multiply one over, right? You start with 10 and you have a small team which is looking at exceptions on a daily basis. But once you start kind of increasing the gamut of asset classes that you're supporting, right, these exceptions tend to increase. So you're already talking about, just for the simple act of maintaining data, this is not even having to master it. Secondly, then there is the whole cost of having to master it right? You have a whole set of data analysts and data specialists. And I was a part of that team where we had to figure out what a particular attribute really means. And eventually, all of the banks, we've seen banks go through so many mergers and acquisitions, right? And each bank brings their own data system. And it used to be one of, I think at one point in time, it used to be the biggest project, because around 2009, 2010, a lot of banks went through mergers. And all of these banks would come with their own huge data source.
Yeah.
The only project we used to do is trying to find foreign keys, right? Oh, this data set, they have an equities database, and so do they. And then all of these systems had to merge with each other. It made no sense, but we spend hundreds of hours and probably millions of dollars trying to sanitize that data. And it was never smooth. I'm just trying to think of the people cost. Even today, I know we have clients of ours who call us up and say that now, I have people freed up to be working on, like, say, Brexit, or working on the latest and greatest set of exchanges, or you just free up people to be able to know other things and leave managing data to us. Right?
And a lot of the banks that have started to trial our APIs, they've been not surprised, but they've been happy with the performance, because we're using modern technology. We're using AWS as our API gateway, which allows us to round robin and keep all our performance going. So all the performance issues are dealt with up front, and part of the engineering process, and also part of the business design. So all of our customers aren't calling about that we don't have enough throughput. If anything, they're calling about they want more product, more services. So
yes, I'm not surprised, Rocky, because one of the big reasons is to replicate data locally is one, obviously, for data security, but now is the world of open APIs, and everyone's kind of adopted to the latest and greatest, but also performance, right? So it's quicker to have data in-house. But do you think that you're going to be able to address all of that through the technology that you use?
Yeah. So all of the data is going to be accessible, and through the APIs, and they're there today. You can actually, if you look at the collateral that's attached to this talk, you'll have the URLs. You could go sign up and start using the APIs. There is a trial, and it's self-provisioned. And then after the trial, we will welcome you into our family to use the APIs. So we're about done with our time here. Pallavi, any final words that you'd like to leave with everybody?
I just know that all of these projects are time taking, right? Like when we're talking about instrument reference data, you're talking about large volumes of data, and they're large volumes of correlated data. One change on one corporate action really has repercussions across the gamut. Like I said, it could be a change on a stock, and it is going to affect the futures on top of it. It is going to affect the options and futures. It is going to affect strategies which have these futures as legs. It is going to affect the index which this stock is a constituent of, right? And just we've had so many clients call us up and say that, you know what, it's so nice to have one system where one change percolates seamlessly to all of the asset classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I see no reason why anybody should replicate this. And it is data coming from exchanges. There is really one source of data, so that really can be a golden copy. So why should everyone kind of replicate it at their end add their own sauce to it, right? There is one truth, right?
Right.
And we believe that RDU should
Exactly.
that, right? So it's going to be fun. Like I'm waiting for everyone to be kind of adopting the API and asking us questions when we are ready.
Yeah, we're excited too. We're expecting lots of trials and a lot of conversions. So we'll keep everybody abreast how we're doing. That's it for today. Thank you everybody for joining. Please be safe. And again, if you have any questions, please see the collateral. You can reach me directly on LinkedIn at ROQUE Martinez. And Pallavi, do you want to give your LinkedIn spelling
I'm
as well?
available on Pallavi Dongre on LinkedIn. To find me.
So if you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to reach out to any of us, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks again for joining us today. We hope you found the session useful. If you'd like to sign up for a 2-week free trial of our comprehensive API suite, please follow the link on screen and register your details. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Rocky or Pallavi directly or email us at info@smartstream-stp.com. We look forward to seeing you for another espresso break soon.